Hello and welcome to Album Club. We're back to doing some full-length reviews, and we're doing Snow Patrol's Eyes Open this week. I'm pleased to say that actually, for once, it's all six of us kind of reviewing the album, which is the first
It's going to be a
time
mess.
ever. Yeah,
It's
there's
a
going to be
pre-Christmas miracle.
there's going to be
Absolute hectic.
lots of opinions flying all over the place. So yeah, it could get messy, but we'll just see how it goes. Now we chose this album because
if we weren't prone to interrupting each other before, which highlights my point from talking over you. Yeah, sorry.
Anyway, the reason we chose this album is because of Battle of the Bands, which is a show we do on the radio, and Snow Patrol were in a semi-final against Arctic Monkeys. So we've already done Favourite Worst Nightmare, so now we're doing Eyes Open. How did everyone enjoy the album before we get listening to it? Just generally.
I didn't, and then I did.
Oh.
Wait, hold on. We can't all answer. There's too many of us for
just very briefly. Just very briefly.
To my knowledge, isn't Snow Patrol like a lot of people's favourite band? One of them.
Not favourite, but I like it.
Yeah,
one of my tops.
Yeah, they're one of my
top
favourite
three
bands. Yeah.
Yeah, they're good.
Okay, so yeah.
What?
It was very mixed. It was very, very, very mixed. My feelings towards it. I have everything from I love it, absolutely love it, to I absolutely hate it between the different songs. So
anybody else?
Every range of emotion.
Anybody else got anything to quickly say about it before we get listening?
I liked it.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
And then on that note, we'll get listening. The first song is "You're All I Have." Okay, so before everyone says kind of what they thought of that as an opening track, I realised I didn't actually say much about the album before we got listening. So I'll do that now. The album was released back in 2006 and actually was the highest selling album of the year. It charted,
Really?
Yeah, obviously with that said, it was the number one album of the year. It's also one of the best-selling UK albums ever, around 50th in the all-time list of top-selling albums. And we can talk about this kind of as we go through the album, but they apparently took their time over this album, and I think most of us will agree there's some big differences between it and Final Straw, and they said this was kind of the first time they had a lot more time to really be more creative.
It's not boring.
They're not under pressure to get songs out. So at least commercially, a very successful album. And I think it starts off really strong with the song we just had. I think "You're All I Have" is a brilliant intro. It's a good, hard-hitting song. Get it going, doesn't hold back, but also sets the theme off really nicely. And I'll talk about the theme of this album a lot. You're going to get really sick of it because I've got this whole story that goes along with this album, so you're going to have to hear all the different bits about that. But yeah, before I go into that, what did everyone else think of that?
Well, I think then you are all I have. You are all I have.
I already made that joke.
You are all I have. There are 4 lyrics in this song. It is.
I have no fear because you're all I have. I don't know how I feel about this version of the song.
Okay, but you can't compare it to the later version.
Well, no, but okay, admittedly that was the first version I knew, so that's kind of hard to distance from. As an opening song, I think it is good the way that it is, because it ties into the album very well. I just think there's something, contrary to what Tom says, I think it actually is quite good lyrically.
There's a huge echo, by the way.
Yeah, no, I can hear myself.
We're allowed to make notes.
Sorry.
Yeah, of course.
If I don't make notes, it turns into a mess. Except for I didn't make notes in the last couple of songs because I got bored. Yeah, I feel like the music, in the way the instruments and the music are doing the thing, it kind of masks the words. I wasn't really listening to them very much, and I think because part of what I was thinking is that it works as an introduction to the album because it sets up the theme for the album. Like, You're All I Have is quite an intense statement to be making. And I think, as Ben's story will probably go, I think that's quite an important foundation for it. You know, this is, yeah, quite basically words and important for theme.
Yeah, you predicted correctly. This is, for me, in terms of what I'm going to talk about in theme, this is a hugely important song, because it sets up this. So the whole album looks at relationships and specifically breakups, for the majority of it, and say I've really focused on that idea, and I've kind of seen this flow in it, and whether that's intentional or whether it's just me making up absolute bullshit, which it probably is. I think this song starts off perfectly because it's this.
No comment.
It really focuses on this kind of. He has this like realization right at the start where the clarity that he suddenly realizes, oh my God, you're all I have. Like, you can imagine that they've just, like, someone's just said, oh, we need to break up, and suddenly he's all he's thinking is, you're all I have. There's this kind of almost desperation, and this really strong sense of this realization and almost like panic. And I think it's a really important first step in this kind of, in the whole theme of it, because it just sets out on the table kind of the magnitude of what this means to him, and we'll see it develop through the album. But yeah, aside from going back to the sound, I think it's a good start. Anybody else want to say anything?
Yeah.
I'd say. Okay, just go first then.
I agree with Charlotte that the lyrics do get a little bit lost in the music. I think they've kind of done that on purpose because the melody of the vocals is doing a very similar thing to what the instruments are doing. You know, it's not just like chords underneath and then like a melody. It's like, you know, they're doing almost the same thing, it seems very much purposeful to me. I'm not sure if I like it. I do have to admit, when I was listening to this album with Dylan, it really reminds me, and anyone who's listening to this kind of music, when I understand it, it really reminds me of like modern Christian music, this first song. Like, you know when you get those songs like, oh God, like it literally sounds the same to me as like modern Christian pop music. Like, I'm dead serious. And I think the lyrics don't help
Jesus
with that.
Take the wheel.
Literally, like if anyone's listened to, what are they called? I forgot what they called, that really big Christian rock band, like pop band, but I don't remember, but it literally sounds so similar. But yeah, anyway, in terms of that's just a comment. In terms of
I feel like I'm not up to scratch on my rock Christian music. I feel like all of you were like, yeah, I know what this vibe is.
I went to school. So.
I went to a Jesus school, so yeah. But anyway, I think in terms of the relationship stuff, I've never really, it's more a personal thing. Like, I get annoyed a lot at kind of toxic relationships being
Thought you were going to say it me.
And no. And this first song, I don't know. I understand when songs are being negative and they're like, oh, like this person's all that I have, I'm okay with. But you know when you get songs which are just like, oh, you're my everything, like, you know, I have no independence or sense of self or sense of identity. Like, I get that it's a break. Now that Ben's contextualized it a bit, that it kind of is like a realization, not necessarily a good thing.
I think he's just bloody heartbroken, like.
But the song, to me, it doesn't sound sad, but what he's saying is such a bad thing. And I find this, the reason it bothers me, the reason I'm not giving him the benefit of the doubt is because I find in so many songs, it'll be like, I love you, you know, I don't have anything without you. And, you know, you can feel like that, but that's not true most of the time. So I guess it bothers me because even though, like you said, it's meant to be sad, to me, it didn't feel like a particularly heartbroken song. It sounded almost happy, but then it's talking about something really sad. So, and it doesn't feel like something that was done on purpose either. So that dissonance kind of bothers me.
Yeah. Well, again, my reaction.
I feel like I'm kind of in between.
All right, well, guess I'll die. My reaction to Ben's explanation of it.
I just feel like mine's. Oh, sorry.
My reaction to Ben's explanation of it's sort of like the album. You know, this is the realization point. There's no real development. You know, it develops far more, I think, with him and the situation, is I think how I see it now, which I do agree with. Like this song, it's probably the most like generic song. I'd say like any band could have really written this song. Which isn't a bad thing. Like it's still a nice song, and they still sound great doing it. But that maybe that goes along with it. Maybe it is meant to be like that. But as a start of an album, I think that's great. Where his development is starting with the actual music starting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, Charlotte. You want to still say something?
I mean, I was kind of thinking that where I sit with this song is somewhere in between, as in like what it's saying is kind of in between somewhere where you and Jess are. Like, to me, the breakup hasn't happened yet. This is kind of the establishment of, this is a relationship, but it's really toxic because this person thinks that they're dependent on this relationship. And that's why things turn to shit the way that they do. And that's why it also sounds like it's happier, because they think they are happy, kind of. That was my thought.
I just think I've had so many songs talking about sad things that still sound happy. I don't want to be really rude, but I've heard so many songs do that so much better. Like that whole like sad topic, happy song thing, and it works, and I can still tell the lyrics are sad, but because it's so few lyrics and they're not very easily heard because of the way the sound mixing has been done on purpose, it really doesn't convey me as a successful happy sad song.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, that was brutal, but
not really.
Well,
yeah, no pump up kicks.
Before we move on to the next song, my positioning on that was kind of with Dylan. I think it is he's starting at the same place, and he's in my mind he's just been told. I mean, for me, he's just been told they're breaking up, and the breakup has happened, and it's this overwhelming thing. And so even though it doesn't reflect the mood, which you might say it should do, that I think it works because it's kind of going with the music, and it's kind of this overwhelming, lots of stuff racing through his head, and so it comes out in a messy way, which quite rightly doesn't necessarily reflect the mood because there's just so much going on.
Because relationships do have two halves to them, don't they? There's the sad part, but then there is a happy version of you're sort of moving on and progression. So in that sense, you can have the happy and sad in the same song.
Yeah. All right, we will move on to track 2, which is Hands Open. All right, that was Hands Open, second track of the album. What did everyone think? Anyone want to lead on this?
It was right.
Can we have the story bit first? Because I have thoughts, but it will partly depend on the story bit.
So based on what I think story-wise this is you can really hear the conversations, the arguments kind of happening in this song, and there's like if you look at the lyrics, you can almost picture the arguments they're having, him trying to stop the breakup from happening. As we say, we already know how much this relationship means to him, desperate for it not to end. But I think there's an openness towards it. There's an honesty. Obviously, he's saying eyes open, hands open, heart open, all that stuff. And so I think it's just kind of a more. It's a real kind of conversation point of it, and a somewhat openness. Trying to be honest. There's one of the lyrics which is, "Why would I sabotage the best thing I ever had?" And so I think it is this honesty and a holding on, but not in almost a clinging, but trying to be honest about it.
That answers my question. Sorry, that answers my question. Thank you. It's just that I think this song is such a better example of a happy sad song. I think that this is such a better happy sad song, because happy sad songs are a whole thing. They're an art and they're difficult. But I think this song is perfect because it's major, but there's that it's a major key, it's a happy key. But in the chorus, I really like the harmony in the vocals, how it's dissonant, a bit clashy. It's not really obvious, we're not going into experimental rock zones of, clashy, but it is a little bit it's a little spicy tinge of dissonance. And I'm here for it. I think this is such a better happy sad song. Same with the bass line, because it's a really strong bass line. So, they trick you into thinking you've got that stability, but then it's also really it doesn't fit into the 4/4 time signature. It doesn't fit into a nice steady beat. So it's very strong, but also like slightly syncopated. So, I think this does a much better happy sad song because they kind of trick you into thinking it's going to follow musical, traditions, but then it doesn't.
Yeah. Actually, it's quite interesting you mentioning the beat now, because I think later in the album, and when the story kind of twists a bit, there's a change in sound and a change in beat, and I think that's actually a really good thing to mention. Like here, it feels, by all the songs, at least in this first half, all the songs out feel creative, but it feels like a real colour to some of the songs at the start, and I think that changes somewhat later, not necessarily for a bad thing, but for a reason. I think this is a really rich song, and it does keep up the energy at the start, and it's for as far as Snow Patrol goes, it's a pretty hard hitting start to an album.
Yeah.
Chloe, we haven't heard much from you, and you complained when you didn't get talked about the first song. So you want to say something about this one?
I mean, I agree with what's been said so far. I feel like this is kind of the whole, he's kind of trying to fight for the relationship, and she's like, heck no, probably has very good reasons for it, But this is him kind of like clinging on to that, I think, and it's an interesting song. Like I say, it's kind of happy and sad at the same time. I think it's because it kind of mimics the emotions he's feeling, so he's probably feeling a lot of mixed emotions. There is that happiness. I don't know if he's like reflecting probably on the better times, and and there is that hope that he can get her back. But also the sadness, where deep down he probably knows that she's gone. So yeah, that's my bit of interpretation.
Anyone else want to mention anything?
Sorry, I know I've already spoken. Okay, if I said something else.
Of course.
I just had
go away.
Isolated.
Joking.
No, because I had another hot take. I think this song as well. Like I know you were saying the first song was meant to be kind of like this like vulnerable moment of realizing she's all he has, and for me, I just didn't get that. Like I'm quite an emotional person. I don't want to sound like Shane Dawson here, but I feel like I am quite like an empathetic person. You know what I mean? Like I do tend to empathize with people quite a lot. But I feel like with this song, sorry, I feel like with the second song,
half of us got that one.
I feel like with this song, I really felt like he was more vulnerable, and I think it's a really good transition into Chasing Cars, because Chasing Cars is like undoubtedly vulnerable. Like if you don't get emotional at Chasing Cars, like you just don't have a soul. Like there isn't really a question about that. So I think this is a really good transition into like he failed vulnerability, and then he had me back in song 2, and then now he's about to just crush my heart.
All right, that was Chasing Cars. So I'll do story time before everyone.
Story time. I am actually intrigued by your story time, because to me, I can't see this being a post-breakup song, so I'm intrigued.
It is a post-breakup song.
How is it not post-breakup?
It is very post-breakup.
So
maybe I'm just dumb.
We've just had the first 2 songs, obviously very, very kind of powerful, very driven, and then this brings it right back down. So there's kind of the messiness of the first 2, kind of complementing the mood of this kind of the just being told about the breakup, everything stuff flowing through his head. As I say, as I've said, Hands Open kind of seems to be more of the conversation about it, the arguments about it. Chasing Cars is after all that's happened, he's alone and he's just lost, and he's just reminiscing about stuff, and he's just so lonely, saying, "Oh, if you lie here, if you lie with me," like he's just feeling very alone and very empty, and it's this kind of being so upset about what he's lost and just wanting something. So definitely post breakup. And I think it fits perfectly because it's after this whole rush of stuff that's happened. It's that emptiness, that loneliness, and that kind of almost reminiscing on stuff.
Oh no.
Why? What were you thinking?
I still don't see it in that light, to be fair. I don't know. To me, it is I don't think you're going to win me over on that one. I'm going to stay firmly in my little naivety. Although, to be fair, there is that one lyric, But basically, I'm in denial about what one of the lyrics actually is, because it hits me in the feels a little bit. It's that little bit of like those 3 words are said too much, and I think it's then though not enough. But I like to convince myself it's then not enough, because I'm like, imagine, it's like you're saying it too
No,
much,
it's
because you're
not
like
enough.
throwing it away and it has no meaning. But then you're not able to say it anymore, and then you're like,
You're not able to say it anymore, which means they're broken up.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. That was me agreeing with you, because that one line.
I think what the lyrics meant to be is like, obviously, "I love you" said too much, and but like saying it isn't enough to sort it out. Like they're still breaking up and stuff. So yeah. Anyway, obviously a hugely popular song. Like everyone knows it. How did people think it sat in the album?
I mean, I've never heard it before, to be honest. Like, never, ever.
Oh, I thought you were being serious.
No, I'm joking.
Like, wow. You said it so deadpan. I was like,
how does it the first half?
No, sorry. People don't understand my sarcasm. Anyway, now that I've got the floor, I'm going to talk. So I can understand what you were saying, Ben, because I definitely did used to see this. Like, I never thought of it actively as like a lonely song, but I definitely have listened to this song at 2 a.m. in a depression spiral, staring at my ceiling. So I can see now subconsciously, maybe I did know what it meant. But when I got into a relationship, I don't know, for me, this song, it isn't, we've been talking about happy, sad. It's more like, the only way I can describe it is like ethereal, you know what I mean? Like it seems to have this like...
It's very rising,
it seems like it seems like one of those songs where you're crying, but you can't tell if you're happy or you're sad. If anyone's ever felt that, for me, that is the feeling of this song. It's not happy or sad, it's like above emotion. Like, I just love it. Like, I know it's very overplayed, but to me, it really hasn't lost its essence. I could go on about this song for ages, so I just want to say 2 main things, if that's okay. One of them is I just like this song as a love song. I know it's meant to be a breakup song, but for me, like, I always like listening to a song when I'm missing Dylan, so maybe there is an essence of missing someone to that. Because, yeah, it's in my, like, when I'm feeling lovey playlist, when I want to imagine Dylan's a better boyfriend than he is and think about him. And the other thing from a musical perspective is this song, in terms of songwriting, is like, 101 how to write a song. Like anyone, whoever wants to write a song, this is how you do it. You come up with one idea. This is how to make life easier for yourself. You come up with one really good idea, which is obviously that little tiptoe idea. That's the best way, the thing. And you develop it, and it's consistent. He doesn't ever he brings in new ideas, but he never derails it. There's that consistency, but he develops it, and there's that nice cyclical structure, that it doesn't get boring. Like, it's just, it's a really good strategic method of writing a song, and I can definitely see why this song got so popular, because from a musical perspective, it's written very, very well. But it makes life easy for yourself, because it sounds more complicated than it is, which is always good.
Yeah, it is very nice to have like later parts of the song like creeping into the earlier parts, so it's like foreshadowing the later developments of the songs. Like there's the odd like piano keys playing here and there, and
yeah, there's only actually
just
like
little things
4
like that. It's
ideas
very
really
nice.
in this song, but it sounds so much bigger because of the way they use them, which is great. Make life easy for yourself.
Yeah, this is a song that again they spent time on and they cared about, as a
Yeah, no, I'm not saying
contrast
they didn't
to
care.
doing You Me at 6. Like it's just like this is
Let's not go there.
this is what it's like when you want more from yourself and your music, So
You might be surprised to hear, but Jason Carr's only charted 6th.
Really?
What?
I can understand.
Damn.
against what though?
Against what, I don't know, but it did only chart 6th,
Oh, okay.
which you would have thought at some point, even if not on an initial release, you thought it might have come back up the charts at some point. And yeah, I think their only higher charting song is Run. So yeah, and obviously,
What did it chart with them?
Ton of money.
What, Run?
Yeah. What did Leona Lewis chart with it?
No idea. Yeah, obviously, you're saying about how it's like you see it as a love song, like I think most people do, and remember any of my story time bits is just the way I've seen this album
Definitely.
and how I think they fit in with the album. Like there's nothing written down saying that's what this album's meant to do. Like it probably is all
I
BS.
thought you were literally reading off like
no, this
something
is
they've
just
written.
no. This is just what
Yeah, I thought the
This is
same.
what I've.
You're taking his
seen.
word
I was
as
fully
gospel.
indoctrinated. I was taking it as fact. Like,
No,
Yeah, you were literally like the last one. Thanks for clearing that up for me. Now this makes more sense.
No, that's just what I've noticed because like, this is one of my
That's
favourite.
Ben's ego through the
Oh,
roof right
okay.
there.
Like it's one of my favourite
I'm gonna
albums
end
of
up
all
joining a
time.
cult one
So
day.
like it just I've listened to it enough that I've kind of created this story around it. So does anybody else want to say anything?
You're not going to think what I have to say has any value. You know how this was released in 2006 and I was a child in 2006, like a very young child. This song bewildered me. I was like, cars are really fast. And also, why are you just going to lay down and want to forget everything you've learned? Like, I've been learning things all the time. Why do you want to forget that? But now that I've grown up, it's really deep. So yeah. To be profound, all you have to do is confuse little kids.
Yeah, I think
Oh
it's
my
kind of one of
God.
those songs. How you interpret it very much depends on how you stand. For example, like someone in a relationship, like say Jess was saying for her, it's very much like a love song. She thinks of it when she's missing Dylan and stuff. Whereas I guess then you have like the opposite side where Ben's like, it's a breakup song, he's heartbroken, he's so sad, he's feeling alone. I guess that's kind of like your two contrasting views there, depending on where you are. Sorry, Ben, to target you out, like where you are in terms of relationships and such, and how you generally feel about them.
Not good.
Sorry, Ben.
Great,
I
I'm
feel
getting,
like that came
I'm getting
across.
painted in such good light
Sorry,
here.
I feel like
I
that came
completely
across.
missed what Chloe said.
We'll move
Sorry,
on to
what was she saying?
No, we're moving on before we have to repeat that.
I've been called a
but
bad
no-
boyfriend, I think, twice now. So
I'm
I
not
think
saying
it was
no,
more
I'm
than
not saying Ben's a bad boyfriend. I'm saying that
No,
Ben
I'm
has been
saying
hurt
Dylan's a bad
before.
boyfriend.
Yeah. I'm just
We're
saying Ben's been hurt before.
We're gonna move on.
So, and
Let's
okay,
go.
We're moving on, Chloe. Normally it's Charlotte we got to shut up, but no, this time it's you.
Way.
We're gonna listen to "Shut Your Eyes." All right, that was "Shut Your Eyes," and I'll do a little bit. It's probably one of the weaker bits where I don't have as much to say about
story time.
Story time.
I still think it fits in nicely with this theme that's going on. I feel like this is more of an inward song in the whole story. So we've had the stuff where it's singing about the relationship or singing about the stuff he's going through, and this feels a bit more of an inward song, a more reassuring song to himself. So that kind of whole "shut your eyes, think of somewhere," kind of almost soothing himself, relaxing himself, trying to get over all the stuff which has just happened, all the overwhelming emotions, and I think that's kind of reflected in the kind of different sound, which it's quite a groovy sound, that song, and it's quite unique in the album, and so yeah, I think it reflects quite nicely the different style of what he's singing about, and fits in with this theme quite well.
One thing I'll say about, I think, Snow Patrol, structure, I'll say, is I think this song is probably the strongest example of them not doing what they normally do and it coming out really great. Because normally what they did, Ben about this earlier, is normally I feel each of their sections way too long. And I can really like a sound of a section,
Yeah,
but then it will lose me by the end. And by the time the next section starts, I'm just like, okay, thank God. This one has so many different sections, and it's really nice. Because even the first one, which is a bit longer, there is at least development from halfway through, before it then. There's that nice bridge in the middle where it's just singing. I think it's really nice. It's very spacey. It's yeah, that's pretty much why this is probably my favorite song on the album because of just those things. It keeps my attention a lot better and it's a lot nicer. Yeah, I think just to listen to. Easy.
Yeah.
It's probably Snow Patrol's Achilles heel. Is their double first verse, and you'll see it in so many of their songs where they do a verse and you think, okay, we're going into the chorus, and then they do another verse, and sometimes
they hit you with another verse,
and then sometimes they even do a third verse.
Another one.
They do it quite a lot, and it sometimes can feel very drawn out before you finally get to the chorus. And they probably do it a few too many times. Like sometimes it's good, you get a proper build up, but yeah, it's a thing they do in a lot of their songs.
There's a really specific word for what you're talking about, and I need to go find it. But anyway, can I make 2 points about the song? So I think in terms of like structure of the album, this song, we were talking about the rhythm of Hands Open. Again, the rhythm feels quite similar in that it's a bit syncopated. So I thought that was nice because obviously Hands Open preceded Chasing Cars, and obviously they're both very different to Chasing Cars. So I think this very much brings us back in a way. And also, but the other thing I was going to say is, I don't know how to explain it. Like 3/4 through the song when kind of, I want to say children, but they're not children, like the choir join him in the background. That's what it's called. I'm explaining the chorus.
Yeah, no, it is,
the chorus of people.
It is a choir, yeah.
Yeah, I find when people do that in songs, it really evokes like polarized reactions in me. Like I either love it or I'm like, yuck. Like there are some songs I will not listen to because they have that in it and I don't like it. And I think I fall to the latter on this song. I think I don't like it.
No.
I think I find it a bit cringe. It's something I think is so hard to do. And when it's done well, it's done so well. But when it's done bad, like it does feel like we're in a primary school assembly. So I think overall I don't like that. But in terms of tone, I like this song. I think it does well in the album structure.
Was that your... I can't remember. I've lost track of counting points.
Just move on then, Charlotte.
Yeah, that was 2 points. That's done.
Cool. Sorry. I can't count to 2. I can barely count to 1. For me, this one felt massively trance.
Go on, keep going.
Who? Me?
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, no, sorry. I didn't realise people were still talking. My bad.
Sorry.
I thought I heard a nice pause.
Charlotte, just go. Just go.
Yeah, to me, this one feels massively trancey. And that's probably, I think that's been picked up on a couple of times, but yeah. I feel like there's some kind of, riff. I don't know if the word for it is riff, because I think it's, all the way through it, so I don't know if that counts as a riff. I couldn't tell you what it is right now.
Any riffs in that song, but okay.
There's something, underneath it, a little... something that kind of carries it. Maybe, I don't think it's a bass line or anything, but something.
Maybe help us out here.
I can't remember. You know what? Breeze over the point, but I thought that helped with the tranciness of it.
What's happening?
Sure. All right.
What's happening is I'm talking, and what happens when I talk is people get confused. For me, I liked the little choiry moment because it felt quite cool and responsy.
It made me want to sing.
Typically I don't like them, admittedly. But what I liked about this one is because it felt trancey and then he was singing and then people were responding, it kind of felt a little bit culty, they were following him a little bit. Okay.
You just have your own take on this album, don't you?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm just vibing. This is why I didn't get it at first, because none of the songs linked up to me in my head, and I was like, this is just doing this thing. This one's a cult song. This one, we're lying down in the middle of the road. We're vibing.
All right. Let's move on. We're going to listen to It's Beginning to Get to Me. It's beginning to get to me. So, I'll just start with story time. Contrast to what we've just heard, all the reminiscing, all the kind of calmness, we're back into kind of a more overwhelming feel. And I think the key bit of this is the reality hits him. It's suddenly, and as said in the name, it's beginning to get to me. It's suddenly like, oh, this is actually happening. This is what's going on now. And it's trying to deal with the reality of it. I think it's quite an important point because he's not saying it in a bad way, but in a almost moving on way. But it is still it's still quite loud and quite quite big and building up, because it is still quite a big thing to deal with. It's not as if he's quite accepted it yet, but he's realizing it, and I think that's a fairly important point in a breakup. But what I love about this song is the way it, kind of more looking at the song, is just the way it builds it up. Like, we've had a couple of calmer songs, and now this really brings it back up, but slowly. It's not just straight out there, out of the blocks. It does build up, and I think Snow Patrol, they, again, much like their first verse thing, they might do it a few too many times, but they are quite good at building up songs. And this is just a display of it. Like, they do build songs so well. And you really feel like once you start listening to it, you almost feel like you have to finish it, because you really want to hear the big, almost fanfare at the end of it. Yeah. Anyone else want to say something?
I mean, just to say, because you kind of brought into it, that the end of that is my favourite part of the song. I'm not too keen on the beginning of the song, if I'm honest. Like, it's all right, I could take or leave it, but the end of it is stunning. Like, his voice work in it, I don't know much about voices, but those the goes to the high notes, and then they're coming back, and then they're going back up. I wrote down in my notes falsetto with a question mark. I don't know what the fuck falsetto is, but
yeah.
I mean, sure. I noticed a lot of similarities to the first song, almost as if it was done on purpose. So I think it was in the same key, because in my head, without even trying, at the end of the chorus, before it went back into the verse, it was almost as if it was about to then go into the chorus off the first song. And then there's lyrics where I think, so the first song is
You're all I have. Yeah, you're all I have.
And this one is like all we have. There's like loads of little tiny references, I swear.
That was something I was thinking about throughout the album. Like, I feel like there's a lot of songs that parallel or are reminiscent of other songs. Like, there's one coming up that I think is like the opposite, in quotes, of Chasing Cars. And also, like, there's literally a song called Open Your Eyes and Shut Your Eyes.
Yeah.
So, in like a more obvious example.
But yeah, anyway, that sort of keeps like the story aspect going. That it's all related, and it's all progressing. Different aspects at different rates, which it's a really nice touch. I really appreciate that now that I've noticed it. I think Jess realised it as well. But yeah,
it's something I have picked up, and it is it's just nice because it does show this development, and we'll talk more about the development after the next song. But all these little snippets of other songs, not snippets of other songs, but little bits which you could say are similar to other songs, kind of bring them together, which as an album, not just for the story and stuff, as an album that's really good. Like, we've seen Snow Patrol's previous, like when we did Final Straw in AlbumClub, songs didn't feel connected, they were doing their all different things. And we've still got some variety in this album, but it's controlled, and it's got a sound, and it's got bits to tie it all together, and it's really helping the album as a whole. Anyway, if anybody doesn't have anything else to say, then we will move on to You Could Be Happy. All right, we've just listened to You Could Be Happy, and I'm going to say quite a lot about this song, because big story time, and
chunky story time,
and also just about the song as well. I feel at this point it's a huge bit in this story that I've created, and there's just this whole bit of acceptance in this song, and it's after all the stuff we've just heard, after all the overwhelming stuff at the start, the reminiscing, the reality of it in the last song. Now it's just acceptance, and moving on, and genuinely trying to be happy for the person, even though he's still in love with whoever was in the relationship with him. He's still in love with that person, or he's trying to move on, but he is saying, all I want is you to be happy. And like, the lyrics in this song are so heartfelt. They're just some of the most gorgeous lyrics. I mean, right at the end, the do the things that you always wanted to, like all I want to see you is take a glorious bite out of the whole world. They're just such gorgeous lyrics, and I think whether the like twinkling, almost like that noise, whether you think it's good or not, like it's kind of I can see why people don't think it's great, but I think it just fits the song so nicely because it almost makes the song seem quite sparkly and sweet and just very, very innocent. And I think it's just such a nice way to kind of genuinely see, like he's saying, I am trying to be happy for you. And so so at this point, in terms of story, you're thinking, okay, that's all quite nicely rounded up. He's done with the breakup. He's saying you can move on. That story ended, but it's not, as we'll see. Yeah. But anyway, aside from that, I love that song so much. I think it's such a kind of pretty song, and I feel like the lyrics are so heartfelt. But yeah, anyone want to disagree with me hugely? Or
Boring doesn't go anywhere.
I really like the twinkling.
Okay, who wants to go first?
I mean, I did say when it started, I didn't like the twinkling. I think my issue is I don't like the twinkling at the start. Because actually it is a really comforting sound. You know, as you were saying, it kind of reminds you of those mobiles that you put on babies' cots and they go, wee, and then they're mesmerised. Yeah, and kind of mood with the song. We were kind of saying that, I can't remember his name, singer.
Gary Lightbody.
Hopeless Romantic. Is a hopeless romantic, and I feel like this is epitome of a hopeless romantic song. And to the point where, like, the way I listen to it is almost like Hopeless Romantics Anonymous a little bit, where it's like, you know what, I feel supported from the fact that you're also feeling this. You know, like sometimes you just need someone to put into words, and you're like, yeah, man.
It's thematically very similar to Shut Your Eyes. It feels like he's having to sing himself to sleep almost. You know, that's kind of what I got. This one felt more literal, like a lullaby. Maybe this one, because it's later on, he's sleeping slightly better. I've never had a breakup, you know, myself. I guess no one. Who would break up with me? People listening, you won't be able to see me, but I'm gorgeous. I don't really know who would break up with me. But anyway, I've heard from people who've had breakups that it's really difficult, like, to sleep for the first time. That's one of the things most people get. So I like the fact that thematically they're similar, but the second one in the album is more sleepy. It's more sleep related. It sounds like a lullaby. So, you know, I don't want to hijack Ben's story thing, but for me, the story is like, you know, he wasn't able to sleep and he was having to sing himself to sleep. And now he's still having to sing himself to sleep, but it's better. And that's also something I like, because I like it when albums are consistent. And I like that the fact that he's bringing that up again. You know, I find it weird in albums when they're like, you know, especially when it's like a concept album. I wouldn't know if you call this a concept album, but there's some kind of theme. There's at least a lot of, you know, running themes.
Yeah, there's a stronger theme than most albums, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite say it's a concept album, but there's still very strong themes, stronger than normal. How many times have I said themes? It doesn't sound like a word anymore. But on the point I was going to make. Yeah, I like it when people repeat points, because I find it weird when songs are like, oh, I'm really struggling with this, like, you know, everything's going wrong, and then the next song's like, I'm so happy, you know what I mean? It just feels really not okay, whereas I like the fact he's repeated the idea that he has to sing himself to sleep.
I was just going to say, I agree with the whole, it kind of seems like, you know, you're saying, like, I do like the kind of twinkling noise, as you put it. I think it kind of symbolises the fact that he is trying to comfort himself here, you know, it's that kind of it's all very calming, you know, it's like he's having a talk with himself almost. It feels very personal to him. This is his way of trying to cope with these emotions, you know, and this is his way of moving on. There's this huge sense of acceptance, you know, he's accepting that these memories and these feelings aren't just going to vanish overnight, but that he is also ready to move on, and he wants them to move on and also be able to be happy. And that he still cares for them, but he cares for them enough to want them to move on, if you will, and to be happy in other ways without him.
Yeah, no, it's if you do read through the lyrics of it, like they do really kind of show kind of the kind of honesty in it. All right, we're going to move on to.
No, wait.
Oh.
I think this song's boring, and it's always lost my attention whenever I listen to it on the album. That's all I have to say.
Dylan, have you ever gone through a breakup?
I don't need to have gone through a breakup.
Nah, fuck
He's
off.
too busy simping for me.
I think
No
this...
breakup, no opinion.
Oh,
All right, we're going to move on. This is Make This Go On Forever. I think from the literally from the first lyric of this song, not even the first lyric actually, even just the instruments in the song, you can already sense a change in the song. I feel like from here on in, a lot of the songs are quite more. We've said the songs before have been quite rich, quite creative. They've got some interesting beats going on, some interesting rhythms. I think from here on in, the songs get a bit more, not melodic, but to a beat and quite driven. And I think that reflects a change in what they start to sing about. Because we've just said on the last song, "You Could Be Happy," it was all about acceptance, moving on, wanting that person to be happy in their lives. Now suddenly he's sitting on planes, worrying about the mistakes that he's made, like saying it would take his whole life to make things right. He's talking about things going on forever. Please save me from this darkness. Suddenly he's spiraling, and there's this obsession. It's always in his head, like something's gone wrong here. He's not over the relationship. He's going on a spiral, and it does really feel like this song. There's this kind of almost this obsession now where he cannot get it out of his head, and I think that's reflected quite well with the "Make This Go On Forever" kind of name and stuff. Like, and it's quite a long song. It really kind of drags it out. And so conceptually, I think it works really well because it is this start of a change of things taking a turn downhill with how things are going. And I think it's reflected really well in the kind of change of tone in the song. I will say it's not my favourite song in the album. I've said already I love how Snow Patrol builds songs. I think this one they don't quite build it as well as some other songs. It does fall a bit short at the end. But I think it's a really important song in terms of the album, in where it is and for what it stands for.
I feel quite differently to you about, well, I don't know, the song in general from the sounds of it, but like I I was quite satisfied by the the general sound. It's so climactic, I feel, all the way through, and then it ends with less, which I think is like it works with how much the song is compared to especially the last one. One thing about the last song that I wanted to mention but was cut off, which is fine, is I felt that one didn't go anywhere. And this song is where that song should have ended up. I feel the two should have been one song. And fair enough, it's one after the other in an album, but I just feel the climaxness of this song would have complemented the first one, the one before this, so well. And I think it's a shame that they didn't catch on to that. But yeah, I don't feel this song's too long because it's so much. It's really rich. Um, yeah, I mean, those are my general thoughts. I quite like the sound and all the harmonies, and it's very appealing to me for some reason. I don't know why not to you.
No,
Yeah.
it's still appealing to me. I'm just saying, like, I mean, of the album, which is some of my favourite songs, this is one of my not as favourite. And when I say like they're not as creative in it, it's not. I don't like, and it's not as rich. I think they are still fairly. There's still a lot going on in the songs. I just think they do it in a different way from here on in. Yeah.
See, I
Yeah.
disagree with Dylan with that because I think I listen when I listen to Snow Patrol. I listen for the end of the song generally. I like it after the build up, and I can find the starts quite slow sometimes. You Could Be Happy, I think, is a great example of them just doing a good slow song. This one, it just goes on too long for me. And I agree with you, Ben. It just doesn't reach any form of climax. And that's a bit upsetting for me because it goes on, and I'm expecting like we've Set Fire to the Third Bar. I'm expecting something a bit more to come in, but it just never does. So it's a bit of an iffy song for us.
Well, with that cheeky little name drop, if no one else has anything to say.
Like, I
I'm
have
just
things
not
to
a
say,
fan
but I
of
have
it.
nothing structured to say. You know? I kind of sit in between all of you. I'm happy with You Could Be Happy as its own entity. Love it. Grand. Good. But this one as well, I also enjoy. To me, it's I got similar, not vibes, but this is the one that I thought was quite opposite to Chasing Cars, in the sense that it feels similar structurally, not the same, obviously, but like with a different tone. And I think this one feels to me a little bit more guarded in a very weird way. And I think that kind of works with the spiraling element of it. You know, when you're spiraling, you're trying not to spiral, so you're really clinging on. But yeah, whereas I think
I just steer
in
into
Chasing,
the skid.
sorry, was that?
Sorry, that was just a side comment. Carry on.
Did you say steering?
I said I don't try not to spiral. I just steer into the skid.
Oh, vibe. I just crash
Sorry,
and
I
burn.
interrupted. It was just a little side comment.
No. Yeah, to me, I like where this one ends. Because, again, me and my boy, Mr. Brokenhearted, hopeless, my boy, you know,
Nice.
that last minute. The thing about Snow Patrol songs is they always leave me being like, whew. And this one leaves me like that, you know? There is something that hits, and we're like, okay, we're emotionally devastated now. Woo.
Yeah, I feel this song has so many builds and climaxes. I don't understand what you guys are saying when you say you wanted more and this song didn't give something to you.
That was
To
just
me,
out
this
of
one
a
gives
pure
more than third
preference.
bar.
Like the thing about the build is, like in the album, I think it works perfectly, and I definitely agree that drawn out ending on this one, whilst it may not be as climactic as some of the other songs, it does work in the album, and I really like what it means.
I'm saying like
But
every chorus has its own climax at the end. It's like it's all building until it all
yeah,
builds and swells like every minute or so.
yeah, I don't like when I'm listening to the song outside the album, it's just not one of my favourites. Is all I guess it comes down to.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of these songs I wouldn't listen to outside of the album, and that's the point I was saving for the end. Like, to me, they all are quite reliant on the album. Some you could listen, like you can choose to listen to them without it, and I'm sure it would work. But I think within the context of the album is where they work best. Except for Chasing Cars, and that's why I feel like every time I get to Chasing Cars, it feels really dodgy for me.
Exact opposite way.
Not dodgy in a bad, like just a bit jarring. But we vibe because we love Chasing Cars, so we accept it. Sorry, don't know where I went. I wafted.
To be honest, I just found that song way too long, and I think it's really boring. I don't really. Sorry, that came out so rude. I don't really have a more polite way of saying it. Like, I just don't like it.
To be fair, I don't think what you're saying is very rude.
Yeah, when me and Dylan listened to it earlier, I described it as ploddy. I think I agree with Ben. Like, he definitely is going down again, and I do like the fact it's not linear, because again, with concept albums, sometimes it can be a bit like, you know, they start off really sad, and then it's just a boring, like, you know, climb to triumph, or the other way around. You know, they start off really well, and then it's just a nosedive. So I do like the fact there is an actual like storyline with ups and downs in a way. Again, I keep calling it concept album. It's not a concept album. I just think it is because Ben's written a story. But
we should move on to the next song, which is Set Fire to the Third Bar. Okay, we've just finished listening to Set the Fire to the Third Bar, which, let's say, this is where I realised my little story is literally my little story. Because the literal meaning of this song is that the phrase Set the Fire to the Third Bar is about his grandmother's electric heater, and it's about and the whole song's about a long distance relationship. So there you go, my story is a complete load of bullshit. But going back
Jess
to
is heartbroken.
Yeah, sorry, can't
Okay.
indoctrinate you into my cult, but I'll
It's
still
okay.
preach. I'll still
I know.
preach my way anyway. It's for me. There's definitely this feeling of separation in this song, which I guess kind of works because he's singing about a long distance relationship. But to me, in this idea that it's still in the aftermath of the breakup, there does feel this separation in this song. And there's this almost ghostly feel to the song, almost haunting. And I really like how her voice in the song, Martha Wainwright, her voice almost does feel that very ghostly, and it's almost like a echo or something of the relationship and of his girlfriend or his partner. Like I feel like it's it's kind of this in his mind all the time, and then there's the imagery of going to the bars, going to the first one, the second one, the third one, and again it's kind of that we've just had the spiral, and now he's gone out and he's started to drinking to try and get her voice out of his head, which sounds healthy.
Well, damn, that's deeper than what they said.
Maybe I should come up with their song meanings instead.
Maybe you should.
But yeah, I think it fits in with the theme well. At least my theme well. Like it's quite subdued, which I guess reflects the him like trying to drink away his feelings. And again, it's got that ghostly feel to it. It definitely kind of works with the darker sense that these last few songs have taken on. But I know this song is quite divisive between people because I know some people just don't get it.
I think it works really well. Gary Lightbody's voice for me is one that's sort of made to be duetted with. Because the song
Is that
he
the
does with
woman
Taylor
one?
Swift.
No,
Gary.
that's our boy Gary.
Gary.
Oh, Gary. Oh, okay.
Although I think her voice is good for duets as
Gary
well.
Argyle.
Yeah. So
No, I hate her
Gary
voice.
he does really well with Taylor Swift. That song I think is really
Yeah.
good, and I really like this. The sort of
What
Martha
songs with
Wainwright's
Taylor Swift?
voice.
The last time.
Don't think I know
it's
that
one
one.
of her better songs. But I think her voice really just offsets his so well, and it builds well, and it tells such a good story. And you hear, with the different voices, you almost hear two sides of the story, and it's the best song on the album. And I'll finish with that.
Charlotte, you want to counter it?
Strong opinion.
No,
Okay,
no one's
so
allowed
what
to
I've been
counter
saying
it.
about my boy Gary writing songs that hit me right in the feels, and that song, I can't think of a good analogy, but yeah, I don't know it's there basically. Like I listen to it and I'm like, okay, you've happened, thanks. I get where it fits in with the album, especially in like Ben's little story. Apparently it's bullshit in real life, but you know, we move. But I could take or leave it, to be honest. I also have a thing about duets. I really struggle with duets, especially like with a male and female voice. Like it just comes across very forced or very heteronormative to me. But we move because I know that people like them. So it's just a thing that I have. I can't, anytime there's a male female duet, I cringe. I just don't like duets, to be fair.
Actually.
My points on the song are, to be honest, I don't really like the song itself. I think, to be honest, first, I'm not a massive fan of slow songs, so it has to be a very good slow song to get me, or it has to be, a song can be slow and exciting, and I think sometimes artists forget that. It's like, just because your slow song sounds boring doesn't mean it's just because it's a slow song. You can actually write a good slow song. So I think sometimes artists are like, give themselves too much credit because slow songs are just slow. But no, I like the fact the title comes from an anecdote. I think that's funny. I think the woman's voice is very annoying. I think Ben's meaning is actually better than the real one. I understand long distance relationships can be hard, but oh God, this song sounds like he's about to kill himself. Like, it's not that hard.
We'll get there, don't worry. The next song we're going to be listening to is Headlights on Dark Roads. Headlights on Dark Roads. It continues to be continues the story quite well. He's just been drinking, and now he's finding himself on a dark road with headlights approaching him. Woohoo! Good job, Gary.
You should not drink and then be on the road. I don't care if you're a pedestrian.
He just wanted to chase some
Gary's
cars.
having a fun night.
Drink and drive, kids.
He like
we'll do it all.
It's definitely taken a darker turn here. Like there's definitely a sense of danger, like a sense of desperation. Like you can hear like the stuff he sings about. He's had enough at this point. And it's not great. It's not
over
a great
it.
mood.
Wait. Ben, have you written into your story that he's drink driving?
No, he's on the road about to get run over.
Because he's drink driving?
No, he's not driving.
He's
just on the
walking.
road.
Walking
He's
around.
drink walking.
Just
yeah.
I thought you
vibing.
turned your story into like a drink driving PSA.
No.
Drink
To be
driving's
honest, that's
fun,
way
don't be stupid.
discussing Ben's story is way more interesting than the actual song. I'm realising talking about it now how much better the first half of this album is than the second half. And it really is this death slot in this album, because it's the same in Favourite Worst Nightmare. It's about this point in the album I started to get a bit bored. And it's this one as well, like, why do artists keep putting the worst songs 3/4 of the way through the album? Like, this is the worst time to put your bad songs. This is the time where everyone's losing interest, and then you put your worst songs there.
Yeah, no, I think Headlights on Dark Roads, there's less to say. I think it continues with the darker sound that we've seen in the last few songs, which obviously, again, with this idea of things taking a turn for the worse, it works quite well. But I think aside from that, there's not really much to say about it. It's a bit more upbeat than some of the others, but it doesn't push anything too interesting. So I think what we'll just do is move on to the next song, which is Open Your Eyes. Okay, we've just listened to Open Your Eyes, and I'm just going to say it, that is the best Snow Patrol song ever. It is just so good. It is everything they do so well. They have the double verse, but it's good. The build up is just insane, and obviously that huge instrumental section at the end. It's so good. It's so like it just erupts into this. It feels very epic, and I love that song so much. And to relate it into the story time.
Story time.
Now, without making a pun, it feels a bit like a final straw.
Damn.
Because it's this huge plea. It feels like this huge plea.
Final Straw is one of their albums. The album before this album.
And I'm not, and
Okay.
that's like, it's by no means does it sound like any of the songs from Final Straw, but it feels like a Final Straw in the sense that it's this huge plea. There's some really dark lyrics in it, and there's this need for him, like him repeating, like, tell me that you're open your eyes, like there's just this desperation, this need for something. He's really trying to catch on to something to help him through at this stage, and it really does feel like this big plea. And I think that works so well with the song as well, because it starts off quite calm, but then by the end, all bashing and crashing in such a good way though, like, and it really highlights this desperation, this need for something to happen. And I think after this whole downward spiral, it is perfect. This song, a story side, this song is just brilliant. It's such a good song. I love it.
I have a second story time if people want to hear it. I only thought this once when I listened to the album, but it was a vibe. So to me, when I was listening to it that one time, it's almost like this was a different person singing to the character of the previous song. This person's I don't know. I was just like, what if they were like in a coma or something? And they're literally singing to them, being like, please open your eyes after this like near-death experience. I don't know. It's where my mind went. And that's where the pleading was coming from, because they realise now mistakes were made. We'll leave it there. I can't remember what song that is. That's going to annoy me. The Island one.
Set Fire to Fergie?
No, it's one of the. I think it's one of the originals they wrote for that reworked album. It's going to bother me.
Okay,
I'm going to look it up and pipe up at one point.
Okay. Anyone else want to say anything?
I think of home. That was it.
I think of it. Okay.
Sorry.
Anyone else want to say anything about Open Your Eyes?
Okay, so yeah, I like the song. I think it has got a lot to it. I think there's a lot of depth there that I really appreciate. I like the variety in it. I think it really shows their range and their capabilities. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful song.
Yeah, and I think it actually something Jess mentioned earlier. I think it like you said with Chasing Cars, how it does something. It starts with something very simple and it introduces some more ideas, but it keeps some stuff throughout the whole song. It does that as well, and I like that return right at the end of the song, where it returns all the way back to the start, brings everything right down after the huge
cyclical structure.
Yeah, and it again, it's just
Like
that
that
build,
from GCSE
introducing new
English.
elements. I think it does. It again shows them at their best. And yeah, Tom, did you want to say something? You didn't want to interrupt anyone else?
Well, all I was just going to say is I've spoken before about how I listen to Snow Patrol for the build-up, and I think that is the perfect example of a build-up. It's a slow song, it goes somewhere, and it's just so worth it.
Okay, so the finish line brings it to a close, a rather apt name. And so, for one final time, let's do one last story time on my...
This one's a wild one, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah. It's we've moved into some dark places now.
Nice one to send us all to sleep.
Yeah. So
end of story time.
Lullaby.
Yeah, lull me to sleep, Daddy.
Are you going to sing the story time?
After the big plea for help in Open Your Eyes, we kind of assumed that it wasn't met because this song is very kind of numbing, and there's just it is the finish line. There is, you look at the lyrics and there's just this feeling like that something's gone wrong. The first lyrics is the earth is warm next to his ear, insects noises of it he hears. Like there's this sense that he's just gone now, and he's talking about feeling like he's out of the world. He can see the whole world from space. He's talking about final breaths and like sad parades, cold water in his wounds. Like things have just become too much, and he's gone. And I think, like, whilst very extreme, this whole story, it feels a very fitting end to it, to see this and after this turn that we've seen halfway through the album, it just, yeah, when it all came together like that, when I first realized this story I kind of created, so I obviously take a pinch of salt in it and like say it's what I've created, but I feel like it does fit the album and fits it really well. And this story you've been taken on, where it seems halfway through like it's all good, like we've had, and sonically as well, we've had some amazing songs, everything's fine, he's found happy, and then this second half where it gets a bit darker, the story starts to spiral, starts to do some dodgy stuff, and it ends up in this situation with him potentially dead. Like it's just like whoa. So I agree. I think Tom mentioned this when we were listening to the song. I think the song itself is slightly anticlimactic, and maybe not the best ending song. But in terms of...
can I just... Sorry.
Yeah, go on, go.
Can I just interrupt? Because I think we all heard you say it during the song. I just think, because you were being quite implicit, like Ben was suggesting that he tried to kill himself, not that he just accidentally died. To my knowledge, that's what you suggested.
Yeah, no, and I think he has, like, we hear in Open Your Eyes, I won't feel like Open Your Eyes. He's already mentioned it. He says the anger's swelling in my guts. I won't feel these slices and cuts. And then in this one, it's as if he's acted upon that. And we hear like cold water running through his wounds. I think this is a very powerful ending. So whilst the song maybe isn't the most strong, I think with the theme and what's been discussed in the songs, it is the perfect ending. And obviously there's a fine balance. You still got to have a good song to end an album. But I think if you're really invested in the album itself and you're listening to it as an album, then this song perfectly rounds it off. As I say, when we wrap up the album, I will, like, yeah, I've obviously spent a lot of time on this story, and I will kind of put that aside for when we're talking about the album. But yeah, there you go. That's story time.
So,
yeah.
What I will say about your story time in this album is that it has swayed me a lot. So I'm not, when I listen to an album, I don't generally think much about the theming and the story and the narrative of it. And in the context of The Finish Line, like you said, I thought it was incredibly anticlimactic. I think they could have easily finished on Open Your Eyes, and it would have been a great ending because it's a big climactic song, it finishes it. But when you put it in the context of that narrative, I can see how it does work pretty well. But yeah,
Sorry.
it's a hit and miss with The Finish Line, and that's all I'll say. I think.
I think that sounds like a case of personal preference. Like for me, I don't really like having a really dramatic end to albums. I really like when people put a really slow song, maybe even acoustic song at the end of albums. For me, I thought it was the perfect end to the album because it began so big, and I really like it. I think albums need to have a big start, but like a really mellow finish. Like I like it when it's like that. It feels like it's gradually fading away rather than it's just being turned off. You know what I mean? It feels like it's easing the wound of having the album finish. I think if we're not, obviously Ben's story is great, and I'm all for death of the author. But if we're just going with authorial intent here, and we know less about the song, I guess, or we're looking at it from a different perspective, to me it feels more like that when it's like, it seems like the finish line is a good place to start, that it's like now our lives can finally begin. Because I guess if we are looking at this not so much as a breakup, a tragic breakup, but more the end of a toxic relationship that really needed to end, it's like they probably couldn't really live their lives until it started. So I guess if we're not looking at it that he's literally died, because he definitely is using death imagery. I mean, insects and stuff are all associated with death because, obviously I'm not going to be gross, but but yeah, I think it's meant to represent like the death of a toxic relationship, almost like a sacrifice in a way because it was needed.
I agree with Jess, or rather disagree with Tom, as personal preference. And it goes back to what I was saying. Like, the way the Snow Patrol songs leave me is the way that this album leaves me because of that song. I need to take a moment. And like, I don't necessarily think that's about the story that we've been on. I think it is literally that we've had this massive build, which they do great, and we love the build. And then almost that absence of build for me, it gives you time to reflect a little bit. Like, you notice the little absence, but like the little resonance of that build that you had. And then I just need a moment after that, man. And time to absorb the imagery as well. And yeah, so story or not, I think Finish Line, personally for me, is great because it leaves me the way I love Snow Patrol for their songs, not necessarily for their albums. So it's nice that an album has the same effect on me as a song. Yes, that's what I was saying.
I love the amount of imagery in the song. I do like the fact there is so much storytelling in it. However you interpret that story, I think it depends very much on your own personal experiences, and also how much you listen to what the author's trying to say and how much you research those themes and things, as well as sort of exploring them yourself. I feel like it starts off very strong. I think it, like we've said, it does sag a little bit about 3/4 through, but then I feel like the ending is just, it's right in a way. Like, it feels like, if we say it is about this relationship, for example, I feel like when you get to the end point, you can decide, do you have this rebirth, or and come back stronger in the way that perhaps Jess might see it, it has to end and things, or do you look at it as a, you stay down and it feels almost like you go through that death kind of situation. And I suppose that is very much down to interpretation. I like that slight ambiguity at the end. So I like the fact that it gives you something to leave the album thinking about, and it does play on your mind.
Some food for thought.
Overall, I think rating-wise, are we doing out of 10?
Mm-hmm. No halves.
I think. Okay, I'm going to give it a 9.
Integers only.
I think it is a very strong album. I really like so many concepts about it. And yeah, for me, I'm very much a lyrical person, and I like the fact that so much thought and time and effort appears to have been put into those lyrics, and there is a lot of feeling and soul that I feel in it, which I really appreciate.
All right. Any particular favourite song? I can remember if you mentioned.
Second to last one
Open Your Eyes.
was Eyes Open. Was it?
Open Your Eyes.
Open Your Eyes.
All right, Tom, you want to follow up?
Yeah, I didn't think, especially after the final straw, I didn't think I'd think much of this album. And I'm going to attribute a lot of my love for this album now to you, Ben, because that story, while we'll joke about the story, it won me over. Because while you can talk about sort of different interpretations, it's what it means to you. That's how music comes across and the meaning of that. And when you think about it, and it just works as a complete story. There are some great songs in here, but and it works really well. I think Set Fire to the Third Bar will be my favourite song, just because that duet, I think, brings a new element.
Can see like Charlotte grimacing there. When you say that.
It's fine.
Well, that song did grow on me. I didn't like it at first either.
Yeah.
Just listen to
In
it more,
fairness, it has grown on me ever so slightly, but I've listened to it many, many times, and it's not.
But yeah.
In fairness, though, I think I've listened to the reworked version. Sorry. Shut up.
For me, that's the song I know the most, so that's going to be the one that I will always go back to when I think Snow Patrol. But it worked. Yeah, it works very well. And I was going to give it an 8.5, but you said no 0.5, so naturally I have to round up to a 9. It's yeah, I think it was a great album. It's a great time listening to it. I don't want to love Snow Patrol, but I kind of do.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I really am someone who needs like a while to get into albums. You know what I mean? Like I'm really, what's the word when you're always stuck in habits? I'm a creature of habit. There we go. Like, you know, it takes me. When I like an album, it means I have an emotional connection to it. And I think the thing is, I haven't listened to this enough to get that. But I do still really like it, and I would actually say for only a couple listens, I had quite a lot of emotional connection to it. I guess for me, I don't know, I'd probably like there to be a little bit more variation. I don't know I can't quite put my finger on it, but like, you know, I don't want to, you know, sometimes I felt myself getting a little bit bored listening to it all at once, you know what I mean? Especially about 2/3, 3/4 away in. I mean, there was about 3 songs in a row I really didn't like, but the rest of them I feel like are really good. But I think it takes a massive dip for me. So I think in good conscience, I couldn't give it, you know, a near perfect rating, even though some of the songs I think really are perfect, and a lot of them I think are amazing, but the rest of them really drag it down with me. So I think overall I would give it a 7 out of 10. And that might sound quite harsh, but for me, I have very high, like, for me a 10, you know, and even an 8 out of 10 album has to do more for me than that did. But that's not, for me, a 7 is still a very, very respectable thing.
I feel like I want to follow that because I think I feel quite similar. But I'm going to give it an 8, I think, for pretty much a lot of the same reasons as Jess. Also, the first time I listened to it, I wasn't aware that there was potential for a story. So I wasn't looking for one. And I think that made it feel quite collagey and it didn't flow very well. But I think when you realise that there's some kind of narrative happening, it really helps put the puzzle pieces together, and that's very fun. Also, I feel like it's not very common or well done in commonality for albums to have that story. Like, that's the first time I've been impressed by a narrative that a story like an album's had. Yeah, so also I wanted to give props to the name. I wasn't sure when to bring it up because I have that thing about album names and how I just want them to try a little bit harder. This one ticks my boxes. Not only is it a lyric, not only does it not have a title track, it is referenced by compiling a lot of different album titles. It's so Hands Open, Open Your Eyes, and
No, that's
Shut
what I
Your
was
Eyes.
trying to tell you though. The
Yeah, I
lyric
know.
"Eyes
I
Open"
heard
is
that.
the lyrics "Eyes Open" is actually.
I was
okay.
getting there.
Right, okay.
What I'm saying is, it's not just in one song. That's what I
Okay.
meant. It doesn't have a title track, but it's referenced in the titles of a lot of different tracks, as well as being a lyric of one track. And I'm sure there's more references to it that I've missed somewhere in the album. So props for that. Okay, I'm having my head shaken at me, but you know, interpretation. So maybe there is more. Who knows? Yeah, I enjoyed,
Cool.
which
So
is nice because the first listen through, I think I did say 8. Yeah. Favorite song. Favorite song ignoring Chasing Cars would be You Could Be Happy. Yeah.
Really?
Say that,
My solidarity with my heartbroken boy.
Dylan, you can follow up before I do my scores.
I can be heard. Yeah, I can. Okay.
No.
I think 8s and 9s are too high for. I think there are a few misses, honestly, in the album as a whole. I think personally, for me, there's one or two songs that just don't go anywhere or do enough. Yeah, and there was another thing which I completely forgot, but there, yeah, well, first of all, props to the singer. His performance, his lyricism, very nice all the way through. Even ignoring the story, like I don't normally appreciate lyrics, but I did find myself relating to this guy in a number of songs. I like the palette of sounds that they have, and I feel they explored that very nicely. You know, there's a appropriate different sounding songs, which is great. Um, but yeah, as I was saying, I feel there's a few too many misses with song structure is a big one for me. I find I can really appreciate some of the songs, but it goes too long sometimes, and it loses me. Like beginning of songs will have me straight away, and then it'll just lose me, and it's really disappointing sometimes. But yeah, for sure, a fun listen. I'm gonna give it a 7, so not much lower than everyone else, but I do feel yeah, just work on those things, and it could get me up there to the rest of you. But yeah.
Okay, and I'm gonna go next. And huge disclaimer here: I honestly have rated this without my story involved at all, and I think it deserves a 10. And where Dylan thinks, I appreciate Dylan thinks there's those shortcomings, and Jess has also said there's a few songs which she doesn't quite get at that later order. For me, I do get them. For me, it does continue. I think the flow in the album is really good. The few bits I've kind of thought aren't as perfect as could be. There is that slight kind of ambiguity around the finish line. Maybe it could have had a bit more going for it. The energy isn't quite perfect. Like the flow, there's a couple of instances where the flow isn't quite there, but it's still a really nice listen for the whole album. And yeah, they could have pushed the boundary a little bit more on the variety, but I think we're talking minuscule compared to the what's the word? Like I think it's just a small amount that would need to be tweaked. It's not a huge amount. So I think it deserves 10 out of 10. Like, and for something which isn't a concept album to have such a strong theme, it does have a good sound in it. It does have, as I know I mentioned, it's not quite their variety, but generally it has good variety, and it's got some amazing songs in it as well. So it is a 10 out of 10 album for me.
I respect that. Despite having the lowest score, I respect that. Yeah, I do.
And then that's the thing. I also appreciate that it could be a 7 because, like, I get how some of the songs don't do quite enough for. I understand how that can happen for some people, but for me, I think I just get it, and it really does push me to thinking like it all just comes together for me.
I think it's a really good example of just the different things we look for.
Yeah.
Not every album can bring everyone together, but seven's not a bad score. I do think it's a good album, but yeah.
And what I love about this kind of the last two albums we've done, this 10 has been for this kind of, a lot of the 10 has come from the theme of this album, and a lot of the 10 from last album was the sound, and it's really nice.
Ben's just throwing his 10s out.
Look at me, I'm a 10 slut.
Dude, that's 2 10s for me recently. I got one on Idols the other day.
Oh yeah, we must be your favourites, me and Ben.
Yeah, you too.
Just giving you all the 10s.
Oh geez, us three.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for listening to our incredibly long review of
yeah.
Eyes Open, but we hope you've enjoyed it. We definitely have. Obviously, there's 6 of us, so lots of opinions to be shared, but we hope you enjoyed it. Our next album is Foals, Everything Not Saved Will Be Lost Part 2. Thank you for listening to Album Club, and we will be posting some more videos soon.